Hello and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive interviews with leading experts every weekday here on Al-Arabiya English. I'm Tom Burgess-Watson. Coming up in this edition, we'll be getting the latest on tomorrow's high-stakes summit between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. What are the chances that will result in a ceasefire deal? That's the question. Plus, 8 months since the fall of Bashar al-Assad, we'll be speaking to Syria's health minister and asking him how the country is turning the page on more than a decade of civil war. Hello and welcome to the programme. It is all eyes on that meeting in Alaska, the meeting between the US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Well, it's hoped that this meeting could pave the way for an end to the war in Ukraine. Well, if it does, at what sort of a price could any eventual peace deal come at? Could it involve Ukraine giving up land to Russia? Well, we're just one day away from finding out. Well, let's discuss those talks in Alaska a little bit more. And we're joined now by the Republican strategist Angie Wong, a regular and a friend of Arabiya English. Thank you very much indeed for being with us once again, Angie. And also the defence editor of the London Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Also a familiar face here on Arabiya English. Thank you both very much indeed. Robert, let me start with you. Are you optimistic about these talks in Alaska, and how do you see events unfolding?
I'm filled with gloom on one account, is there has been so much blather and talk by the commentariat, whereas you could believe that Putin or Trump or anybody in between, Starmer, Scholz, Macron, are about to sell what we would say in British English is the kitchen sink on this one. They don't really know. But it is very important, and this is a face-to-face meeting between the two. It's very much what they both wanted, and it's very much in the interest, particularly of Vladimir Putin, of course, because this legitimizes his position. And I think it's really what Trump likes very much, and we'll hear from my colleague about this, because he likes eyeballing people and saying face-to-face, now come here, come on, Vladimir, cards on the table, what's the deal here? And it very much plays to Trump. And the consequence, the play out from that, the staff work, and there will have to be very detailed staff work that comes from any kind of agreement, however tentative, is going to be absolutely vital.
Thanks, Robert. Angie, I mean, how do people in America feel about this Alaska summit? Do people think these talks should be taking place?
I think Americans feel great because we've been waiting for this. We've been cutting blank checks to Zelensky for many, many years now. This stops today. Now, what is actually going to bring Putin to the table? It may not be about Ukraine at all. To get Putin on the table, the U.S. will have to present something and offer Putin something much larger than a land grab in Ukraine. And why is it happening in Alaska? Well, geography matters here. You know, opening up the Arctic shipping lanes under U.S.-Russia control. Well, that could bring Putin to the table. Squeezing the EU out of these negotiations, which they have been, and maybe making deals with a trade deal with U.S. and Russia could also bring Putin back to the table. So Ukraine may not be the end game in these negotiations happening in Alaska today. It may just be a bargaining chip for President Trump to talk to Putin about larger issues that they could work together in the future.
Okay, so Ukraine might be a sideshow, and perhaps there is much more at stake than the future of Ukraine at these talks. Robert, I don't know what you think of that. And I also want to ask you, why, if President Putin has so far refused to accept any proposal to halt the war and made no concessions that we're aware of up until this point, what might be different on Friday?
Well, the thing is that they're gaining ground at last. He's got a working concept of maneuver, which is working well. They're pushing on the front at several points. The air attacks have been devastating for Ukrainian morale. So why give up now when you appear to be winning? Because above all, that Putin wants to show to his people within months, not within a year, that he has gained from this special military operation, which he said is absolutely vital to the future of Russia and Russia's standing as the premier strategic power in Europe. Let's not mess about with it. That's what he is after. And he will get a recognition, he hopes, from this kind of contact with Trump, because he knows Trump doesn't have much time for the Western Europeans because they cannot stand up to defend themselves. However much he soft soaps somebody like Keir Starmer, he knows darn well that Keir Starmer has no military credibility whatsoever. And this is where I would slightly disagree. I think Ukraine is important. It's not a sideshow. It's a point of entry into the argument. And I think it will be very important. I think the sort of things that are being talked about on the edges, like the lifting of sanctions and also possibly a resurgence of US and international investment into Russia, particularly into the hydrocarbons sector, is very important. It's very important for Putin, not just for his self-esteem, because he can turn around and say, yeah, to his senior partner, Xi Jinping, look, we can make things work. This thing really is worthwhile, and I am a genuine partner and not a client. So that's again where I agree with my colleague, that there are a lot of wheels moving here, a lot of which we have no idea about. And the thing that I have least idea about is the working of the two principals' minds, how they're working on this, how they work in general, and how they see the future beyond my lifetime, 5-10 years out.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many moving parts here, aren't there? And that's something we can all agree on. And, you know, but one thing that strikes me listening to both of you is just thinking, you know, President Putin is such an experienced negotiator and such an experienced statesman. He's been the uninterrupted, uncontested leader of Russia for much of the last quarter of a century. I mean, Angie, does this look to President Trump like a minefield? And could this set of talks be fraught with risk for him?
Well, it has been a whole set of minefields. Look at President Trump, what he's already done. He's gotten NATO members to up defense spending by 5% in every single country. He's put all these secondary sanctions on countries that work with Russia and buy cheap Russian oil. He's bombed 3 Iranian nuclear sites that was all related to all this. So he's done everything to put pressure on Russia. And now they're coming to Alaska to discuss a deal. Now, Putin, I mean, to speak to Mr. Fox's concerns here, Putin's KGB trained. He knows how to read Trump and Trump knows how to read him. This is going to be quite the meeting because you have two titans here who are going to be looking at each other, sizing each other up, saying, how do we do this? Right? And I hope that's exactly what we come out with, because both men want to continue this relationship. Both men want to have a relationship outside of a Ukraine conflict. And I think that would be the best results coming from these meetings, is to have further talks. Yes, Ukraine's on the table right now, but what else can we talk about? What other trade deals can we talk about? What kind of future are we going to have together? Those are the bigger questions that I would like to see coming out of these meetings. And I think we're going to get there. This is going to be a historic moment. You know, we're going to have great photos of the two men shaking hands on Alaskan soil. I think that this is exactly the kind of moment that changes world conflicts and the geopolitical rejigging of the maps. So I think this is going to be much, much larger than Ukraine.
Okay, so there's definitely going to be a great photo opportunity here. We can agree on that as well. Possibly comparable to the North Korea visit by President Trump, him shaking hands with Kim Jong-un 7 or so years ago. But Robert, let me ask you, I mean, beyond the photos, beyond the handshakes, I mean, do you think President Trump has done his homework, and do you think he's going to bring home some results?
To me?
Yes.
That's a very difficult question, because I read the learned Dr. Fiona Hill, whom Angie will know is no fan of Trump, and says he does it all by instinct. But that's not a bad thing, in a way. I mean, that it goes in a reverse order with him, the staff work. But I would like to ask Angie and to you and to ourselves, who are the second order people that are going to be really important that carry this forward? It's very interesting to observe the performance, the body language of J.D. Vance on his visit to the Cotswolds. And very interesting, the Times of London facetiously saying, is J.D. Vance giving up on taking over Greenland and Canada, but wanting to settle for the Cotswolds instead? J.D. Vance, I think, has been very skilled and astute in what he's doing. He has been getting the European heads together, including Zelensky, and said, look, this is what we can do only so far. This is primarily a European territorial question. This is what the United States aims for. And that's why I think that this is where the commentariat, and again, I would very much welcome Angie's view and yours on this. I think I agree with her. This is much more global than most people have realized. The agenda, I think, will be quite simple, but I think it will not only mean trade, hydrocarbons, the North, the Arctic. I completely agree with Angie about that, but don't leave out the South. And I'm not being silly. Trump has had a big success in brokering a ceasefire between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. We know what the score is there. It is very important, that stability. And similarly, the way that he has been working things with Azerbaijan and Armenia, a seemingly quite local contest, but it could have huge regional and potentially global, but mainly regional implications. And this is why I think that he is a strategic thinker in sorting out the big questions, because the unresolved one that he knows he has to address and come back to is Iran-Israel. And so that's why I think this does look like it's the opening declaration of a whole new agenda, which I think will run through the rest of the Trump presidency. I don't think it's a one-off. I don't think it's a piece of opportunism. I think both these two leaders were looking for the opportunity to meet. And by the way, no comparison with Kim Jong-un and those meetings. Both men, and including Xi Jinping as well, have learnt the lesson from that one. Don't play the clown with Trump, which is what the North Korean leader appears to have done when they had the second meeting in Vietnam.
Okay, you make a lot of points there. And also you didn't mention that Trump had played a key role in brokering peace when things looked pretty tense between India and Pakistan back in May.
Of course, the other one.
And Angie, I mean, we just heard there from Robert. I mean, President Trump has been on something of a roll with these various bits of statesmanship that he has been performing on the global scene. I mean, it's been 7 years since he last met President Putin face-to-face, we think. That last meeting happened in Helsinki, to the best of my knowledge. I mean, how do you think these two men get along? What's the chemistry like?
I think the chemistry is fantastic. I mean, President Trump says all the time, but he calls Putin that they have an open line of communications, even after the phone call, and if Putin then goes bombs a Ukrainian village, they're still friends. It is really, it's an interesting relationship. And again, these are like the top of the tops of the world leaders. What I think the larger question to what Mr. Fox was alluding to, why they're all coming together today, and hopefully for many, many meetings thereafter, is because, if you look at what they're all doing, whether it's Trump, Putin, President Xi of China, or even Benjamin Netanyahu, they're all basically wanting land grabs, right? I mean, we don't want to call it imperialism, but, essentially they're all trying to go for something else. Putin wants Ukraine and probably other parts of Eastern Europe. Xi wants the South China Seas, Taiwan. Benjamin Netanyahu has made plans to take over Gaza, for example. So what does Trump want? He wants Greenland. He wants the Gulf of America. He wants the Panama Canal. He wants Canada. I mean, so you're starting to see that there may be a negotiation to say, look, you take that and I'll take this. And, here's the new world order. I mean, I'm being silly about it, but maybe not, because this is the time where they can all come together and make those discussions and say, how do we do this? And everyone walks away a winner, except for those who lose territory.
Right, and this brings us to the end. And Robert, going back to Ukraine, I mean, what Angie's saying there is that there is going to be a loser in these discussions. I mean, it does look, doesn't it, fairly inevitable that Ukraine is going to have to give up some of its territory.
I think it's a very difficult moment for Ukraine, and it's a very difficult moment for Europe. Europe has not got its act together in time, despite all the meetings between Starmer, Macron and Scholz, to name but three of the leaders. The most fly and shrewd leaders seem to be President Stubb of Poland and Giorgia Meloni, a great Trump friend, in Italy, who seems far more. They both seem far more adroit than the other trio that I've mentioned. But can I congratulate Angie? You must rush out now in time for Christmas. You've invented the new board game above all. We're all going to be playing Angie's land grant game. It's very, very clever. I like it.
All right, well, on that lighter note, we're going to wrap up this obviously very serious discussion. We really appreciate you both taking the time to speak to us. Republican strategist Angie Wong, thank you very much indeed to you. Defence editor for the Evening Standard, Robert Fox, thanks to you as well. In other news, it has been 8 months now since the dramatic ouster of the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad, bringing to an end half a century of his family's rule over the country. Well, for half of his time as leader, Syria was in a state of turmoil and warfare. And the transition to new leadership hasn't been entirely smooth. There have been incidents of deadly sectarian violence, revenge attacks, and massacres. Well, the new Syrian president, Ahmed al-Shara, has denounced this violence and pledged justice for those responsible. Well, let's get more. We can speak now to the Syrian Minister of Health, Dr. Musaab Nazzal al-Ali, who joins us now from Damascus. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us.
أهلا وسهلا حياكم الله.
Thank you so much for having me.
Minister, you've been in this role since March of this year, so about 5 months. You have a medical background. You've done your medical studies and worked as a doctor in both Syria and Germany. I'd like to start by asking you how you would describe the general situation when it comes to the health system in Syria today.
نعم منذ نهاية مارس
Since the end of March, I assumed this role, which is just a heavy going and a tough job. And that's due to the inheritance that we got from the defunct regime. There were many healthcare facilities along with other hospitals and the clinics that are devastated in shambles. More than 40% of the healthcare facilities are out of service, and also the medical education is also in decline. The pharmaceutical productions are on the downside. Many of the medical equipments are not functioning well, and the most recent ones have entered Syria more than 13 years ago. With this in mind, and against this backdrop, until now, we are still relying on the paper-based approach when it comes to noting down the results of blood tests and the patient's details. So this will make just, the challenges more pressing. And when we compare our healthcare systems with the neighboring countries or other European countries, and then there is a far cry. Yet with that said, those challenges will give us the impetus and the motivation to start a new public health sector that is just based on the international standards, so that we can provide just medical services to our people.
Okay, Minister, so a lot of challenges facing the sector, and you haven't had long to address them, only 5 months in this job. I'm assuming, and I'd like to know, to what extent are you bringing with you best practices that you learnt yourself working as a doctor and studying for your medical studies in Germany? Did that experience affect you, and are you bringing some of those practices to Syria?
تماما
Of course.
الاطلاع على تجارب الدول المتقدمة
Yes. Being cognizant of the experience of the advanced countries such as Germany will give us a good insight about the ultimate goal that we are inspiring to reach. With that said, I visited Turkey recently, and I had also visited many other Arab countries in the Gulf region, and even before assuming my role. And I know how their public health sector operates. Of course, being acquainted with those experiences will give us some just confidence on how to reach into our goal and the plans that should be in place at this stage. As far as the challenges are concerned, of course, we cannot deny that we have tougher challenges, and if you allow me, I might just delve into some of those challenges. For example, when it comes to the primary public health sector, especially the primary care, which is the gateway for just caring for patients, where then the patients are then referred just to hospitals, and others might be treated just in those clinics. So many of those centers are not operating well, and many of them are not activated to the ideal level. As for the secondary care, as I mentioned, we have sheer shortage of the medical equipment, and this is one of the most tougher challenges, let alone the distribution of the medical staff that are not distributed evenly, and in addition to the fact that we are suffering from a great shortage of them. With the pharmaceutical industries, remember Syria was exporting to 55 countries before the revolution, but due to the practices of the defunct regime and the high levies and taxes imposed on the pharmaceutical facilities, we were not able just to face these challenges. However, now we are trying to restore the relations with those pharmaceutical facilities. Speaking of the ambulance system, we have many challenges in terms of the number of operating ambulance vehicles, and also training the ambulance staff and also the personnel at large. When it comes to the medical education, then this one leaves something to be desired as well. We are now introducing a new system for educating doctors. Unfortunately, at the Syrian hospital, we do not have a proper electronic system, and here I mean the hospitals that were under the control of the previous regime, which poses a serious challenge. And let alone that we have also some financial.
الحكومة ووزارة المالية بصرف مبالغ على قطاعي الصحة
and invested huge amounts for the education and health sector, more than they just invested in the defense sector. And this is a promising sign in spite of the fact that we don't have the available resources. However, our intention is to have the education sector and the health sectors to be at the forefront of the sectors that should be allocated proper budgeting, and this is for just the first time we see this since mid-50s, where those two sectors get the most generous budgeting.
Okay, I mean, clearly you've only had a few months in the job. It's only been 5 months, and as you've said, the list of challenges is a long list. Are there any achievements, though, so far, these last 5 months, that you at the Ministry of Health are proud of?
أنا أحاول دائما يعني كلمة
I have always been trying just to define the word achievement because when we talk about achievement, then it must be phenomenal for our country and for the region. But given the humble capabilities that we have at the moment, then therefore maybe it's a good idea to give an example about some of the stuff that we have been able to reshuffle and get organized. For example, we have restored more than 100 healthcare centers. Now they are back to service, and many hospitals have been restored and rehabilitated. And we were able also, thanks to just to the assistance of friendly countries and international organizations, many medical equipments have been supplied to Syria and to the hospitals. On the medical education sector, we have restructured this path so that we can redefine and refine the educational system, especially when it comes to major specialization, where we have just a board of specialized doctors, and those boards will be comprised of Syrian doctors who are domiciled overseas, and this could give us a good opportunity just to bring back those doctors and to also to implement the most important medical protocol so that they can be in practice here in Syria. And also at the pharmaceutical industries level, there have been many inspection visits to those facilities, and I think those visits had a great impact on increasing the quality of production of those facilities, so that we are in a position where we can produce safe medications to the people with and up to the standards and the international standard here at our region, or maybe the international standard. The ambulance system, on the other hand, has been also equipped with many other vehicles, as long as a program that is currently facilitating the operation of the ambulance system. The electronic system, on the other hand, has been implemented in one of the hospitals, in one of the major hospitals in Damascus, where people can just book appointments through certain apps on their phones, and in this way just people don't have just to have a long wait until they are seen by doctors. And maybe the outcome of this experience will be tangible in the next 10 days. And we are hoping to just replicate this across other hospitals. And also we are trying to rehabilitate the hospitals, other hospitals. And in this regard, we have signed an agreement with Turkey under which rehabilitation of two major hospitals, one in Aleppo as the heart surgery department, where there will be 4 operational theaters and also 4 other rooms for catheterization, as well as other services. With this agreement, the operation will run for 5 years. And also in the city of Aleppo, there will be also the cancer hospital that will be quite ready to provide surgical services, chemotherapy, radiation therapy to those who might need them. And we have also just finished studying a feasible study where we are expecting to hammer an agreement with an organization domiciled in Italy, under which they will embark on the rehabilitation of many medical facilities and the operation of the hospital for 3 years. As a matter of fact, we are still waiting for the implementation of some agreements that have been agreed upon verbally with some countries in the Gulf region. When those agreements are up and running, then we believe that other hospitals will be rehabilitated and ready to go. We have benefited from the Syrian community living overseas, as they have launched many campaigns led by Syrian doctors, and also other campaigns that were supported by King Salman Center. And here I would like to express my gratitude to all those who participated in this campaign. And more than 5,556 surgical operations were carried out in the eyes, also and other just heart surgeries, some different surgeries and different specializations. Those are just the most salient features that I just wanted to touch upon when it comes to the achievements that we have made so far.
Okay, and of course, Minister, it is early days. The government of President Ahmad al-Shara has only had 8 or 9 months to turn the country around after a long civil war and a lot of turmoil. Looking beyond healthcare, how would you describe the situation in Syria today?
الأوضاع في عموم سوريا وأيضا
The situation in Syria and Suwaida, northeast Syria,
نتجول. أنا البارح ليلا كنت في مدينة وسط البلاد. عدت من
is as follows. Yesterday, I had a tour to the city of Homs, and I came back just at 1 a.m. The roads were quite crowded with vehicles.
العديد من السنوات.
Remember, I lived in Germany for many years. And now for someone like me, who just knew about those two countries, I can tell you honestly that more than 60% that have of what we see on the social media, and by the way, I do check them from time to time, and yet I'm taken aback by some of those posts on social media. Sometimes I see life is just going as normal when I look just at the street. A great part of what we have been hearing is not true. As far as the issue of Suwaida, I'll tell you about that. But when we say that those stories are unrealistic, let me tell you, I do not deny that we are still in need of reconstruction. Have we reached to the ideal situation in supplying power and electricity? No, we have to be realistic, but in general, overall, it is good. And before delving into the specific of Suwaida, I would like to say here that there is a great opportunity, an exceptional opportunity in the health sector in Syria. And this is a message for all the major hospitals and to all the major investors. We have just a great environment which is conducive for investments, which is quite similar to the situation in other Arab countries. We have very skilled workforce, which is relatively cheaper than other countries, and we have also highly skilled doctors and medical staff that have been renowned for their knowledge in case we invest, in case an investment for medical tourism and pharmaceutical industries. So we could really just take advantage of that. I wanted just to touch on this, and I hope this might give you an insight about what is happening in Syria. And it's not worrying, as some people believe. As far as the situation in Suwaida is concerned, since those events erupted on the 13th and 14th of last month and until today, and for us at the Ministry of Health, we have 3 major hospitals, the National Hospital, Shahba and Salkhab. The National Hospital in Suwaida has been affected due to those clashes, and the level of services has declined for some time. Yet, after we have reached into the deal and the withdrawal of the forces, and then I would like to confirm that the entry of the forces to Suwaida was meant to de-escalate due to the long-standing differences among two major components of this city. However, following the withdrawal of the state and security forces, somehow we have a more stable situation. Until now, inside Suwaida, we receive just daily messages regarding the sheer shortages of medicines and supplies. The Ministry of Health and I myself at the head of a delegation comprised of many doctors and medical staff, along with ambulances and medical equipment. So I attempted to go inside the city of Suwaida to deliver those services to our people inside Suwaida, along with the mission of taking an assessment, but we were denied access. The situation was not really stable. And therefore, we are just providing all these equipments through the Syrian Red Crescent. Yesterday, we had a meeting for three ministries, Ministry of Health, as well as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the meeting was held with several international organizations in Syria, and we were quite clear that there have been just dozens of convoys that have entered to Suwaida and provided the medical care and provided the medications to our people in Suwaida.
Okay, and that was the Syrian Minister of Health, Dr. Musaab Nazzal Al-Ali, speaking to us there from Damascus. Moving on now and turning our attention to Iraq, and Al-Arabiya has been given this exclusive interview by the Iraqi Minister of Displacement and Migration, Faeq Yakoob, where he discusses one of the region's most pressing humanitarian and security challenges, namely the fate of individuals still held in Syria's Al-Hol camp. Well, located in northeastern Syria, Al-Hol is a sprawling and volatile camp housing tens of thousands of people, many of them family members of suspected ISIS fighters. Well, the camp has drawn international concern over its dire conditions, radicalization risks, and complex legal and security issues. Well, we spoke to the minister about Baghdad's coordination with Damascus, the number of Iraqis still being held in the camp, and the government's plans to repatriate and reintegrate its citizens whilst ensuring national security. Let's take a listen.
يعني من خلال عمل الأجهزة الأمنية هناك تنسيق غير مباشر، يعني كون هذا الملف ملف الهول يعني خارج سلطة الحكومة السورية، لكن من خلال العمل الوزارة والأجهزة الأمنية هناك تنسيق عالي مع التحالف الدولي والمنظمات الدولية، خاصة بالآونة الأخيرة اللي هي من المؤمل إنهاء هذا الملف بشكل كامل خلال عام 2025 وإعادة كل العراقيين المتواجدين في مخيم الهول. واللي يقع على عاتق عمل الوزارة هو التعامل مع المواطنين العراقيين الأبرياء حصرا من النساء والأطفال، لكن هناك ملف آخر تتعامل معه مستشارية الأمن القومي والأجهزة الأمنية بما يخص الدواعش المتواجدين في مخيم الهول وكيفية آلية تسليمهم واعتقالهم وإيداعهم في السجون ومن ثم تحويلهم إلى القضاء للمحاكمة. نحن نتعامل مع هذا الملف بشكل إنساني كبير وخاصة مع الأبرياء من خلال آلية عمل من نقلهم من مخيم الهول بالتنسيق مع التحالف الدولي والأجهزة الأمنية وإلى وصولهم إلى الحدود العراقية، وكذلك تواجدهم في مركز الأمل في محافظة نينوى لإخضاعهم لبرامج ومشاريع التأهيل النفسي، وبداية بالإيواء والتأهيل النفسي ومن ثم اندماجهم وتمكينهم بشكل اقتصادي وتقديم كل الخدمات والاحتياجات إلى أن يعودوا إلى مناطقهم الأصلية، لكن ببرامج ثابتة تخضع لإشراف القوات الأمنية، لأن هذا الملف يقع على عاتق أيضا الأجهزة الأمنية لما فيه من جنبة أمنية وما يتعلق بالأمن القومي العراقي.
We went on to ask the Minister about recent US aid cuts and what impact that might have on the wider effort to support displaced individuals from the Al-Hol camp. Here's what she told us.
لكن حقيقة كان هناك تلكؤ بسيط في العمل أو توقف بسيط في ما يخص بملف الهول بعد إيقاف المساعدات الأمريكية اللي انعكست سلبا على الكثير من البرامج التي كانت تقدم للنازحين في مركز الأمل، باعتبار أنه الممول الأساسي والجوهري كانت هي الوكالة الأمريكية للأمم المتحدة اللي كانت تعمل مع وزارتنا في داخل مركز الأمل. فهذا الحقيقة الإيقاف المساعدات الأمريكية أدت إلى إيقاف العديد من البرامج. لهذا السبب الحكومة العراقية حقيقة اعتمدت على مواردها الخاصة بتقديم كل الموارد المالية حتى ننهي هذا الملف مع نهاية هذه العام بشكل كامل. نعمل حقيقة مع تعمل الحكومة العراقية بشكل تضامني مع العديد من الوزارات والمؤسسات سواء كانت أمنية أو خدمية لإنهاء هذا الملف بشكل كامل وإعادتهم.
We went on to ask how many Iraqis are still being held in the Al-Hol camp and how many have been brought back. Well, the Minister, Faeq Yakoob, says not a single security incident has been reported amongst those repatriated and that so far their reintegration to society has been stable.
يعني عودنا الآن أكثر من 17,000 فرد من مخيم الهول، وهو العدد الأكبر اللي عملت عليه الحكومة العراقية. اندمجوا ما يقارب 11,000 في مناطقهم، ولحد اليوم لم تسجل أي خرق أمني من العوائل اللي عادت إلى مناطق سكناها. الآن متواجد عندنا أكثر من 5,000 فرد موجود في مركز الأمل يعمل على التأهيل النفسي ومن ثم إخراجهم عن طريق الخلية اللي تعمل عليها الأمن الوطني والوزارة ومستشارية الأمن القومي. اللي متواجدين الآن من العراقيين في مخيم الهول ما يقارب 4,000 عائلة. المسجلين والمدققين أمنيا هم 2,000 عائلة اللي احنا استلمنا أول وجبة قبل يومين اللي هم كانوا أكثر من 800 فرد، وهذا راح يكون تباعا إلى أن ننهي هذا الملف. احنا بدنا نعمل بهذا الملف مع التحالف الدولي بشكل طوعي والعوائل المسجلة، لكن تعرف أكو بعض العوائل اللي موجودة في مخيم الهول تخشى العودة إلى اللحظة، لكن هذه الآلية اللي بدنا نعمل عليها مع الأجهزة الأمنية ودا يلاحظون هناك العوائل أنه أغلبية النازحين اللي موجودين من النساء والأطفال بدأ تسجيلهم وعادوا، دا يشجع العوائل اللي هي لها عزوف بالعودة. فبالتالي حسب الدراسة اللي قدمتها الوزارة واللي أشرف عليها الأجهزة الأمنية وكذلك بالتنسيق مع التحالف الدولي، خلينا الخطة أنه مع نهاية هذه السنة راح تعود آخر العوائل وراح يتم غلق هذا الملف بشكل كامل.
Now turning our attention to the Yazidi community, which has endured unimaginable horrors at the hands of ISIS. Well, more than a decade later, thousands are still unaccounted for, including hundreds of Yazidi women and children, many of whom are believed to be in the Al-Hol camp. Well, many were kidnapped and taken there by ISIS extremists. And while the Iraqi government is working to return them to their areas of origin, some women are too afraid to leave. They fear ISIS affiliates could track them down and kill them. Well, let's get more now on that.
تابعت ملف الإيزيديات عن كثب وبالتنسيق مع جهات ذات العلاقة، وخاصة في مخيم الهول، باعتبار جهاز المخابرات هو الجهاز المعني بالمقتطفات الإيزيديات من خلال رصدهن، وأيضا العمل مع الوزارة لإعادتهم إلى العراق. فبالتالي كان عندنا تنسيق كبير جدا، وبالفعل يعني جهاز المخابرات أدى العملية بنجاح كبير وعاد الكثير من الإيزيديات المختطفات، لكن إعادة طوعية. ما يزال هناك إيزيديات موجودات في مخيم الهول، لكن أغلبهن لا يرغبن بالعودة لأسباب خاصة بهم. وحقيقة عودنا أكثر من إيزيدية، لكن اكتشفنا بعد فترة عادت مرة أخرى إلى مخيم الهول، فهو ملف حساس جدا ويقع على عاتق الأجهزة الأمنية، لكن احنا ننسق على العمل مع باقي الإيزيديات اللي موجودات العائدات من خلال وزارة العمل، وهي عملية يعني تضامنية مع عديد من المؤسسات الخدمية، وخاصة بعد الإعادة من خلال إعادة تأهيلهم، إعادتهم إلى مناطقهم الأصلية. هذه بدنا نعمل عليها مع وزارة العمل، تمكينهم على مستوى اقتصادي، توفير الخدمات والاحتياجات اللي يحتاجوها، لكن هي تخضع أيضا لعملية مسبقة بإعادة النازحين إلى مناطقهم الأصلية من خلال برنامج اللي تبناه دولة رئيس الوزراء السيد محمد الشياع السوداني، واللي أعطاهم خصوصية كبيرة جدا بإعادتهم. الوزارة عادت ما يقارب أكثر من 29 ألف عائلة إيزيدية إلى سنجار. المتواجدين الآن في المخيم ما يقارب أقل من 15 ألف عائلة يزيدية موجودين في خارج المخيمات، لكن بنظر الوزارة وبنهاية هذا العام سيندمجون ويعتبر مندمج في هذه المنطقة.
So where are these displaced people being relocated to? Well, the Iraqi Minister of Displacement and Migration there, Faeq Yakoob, made it clear that individuals have complete freedom to choose where they go.
أعطينا الحرية الكاملة للنازح، يعني ما قلنا اليوم النازح لازم يعود إلى منطقته الأصلية، بل انطيناه أكثر من خيار، أنه يا أما يستقر في المنطقة الموجود فيها حاليا، على سبيل المثال في إدهوك، باعتبار أغلب الإيزيديين موجودين في إدهوك اللي ما يقارب أكثر من 16 مخيم بحدود 15 ألف عائلة، أما أن يبقى ويستقر في محافظة دهوك، أو يختار مدينة بديلة قد تكون موصل أو سليمانية، أو يعود إلى منطقته الأصلية مع امتيازات قدمتها وزارة الهجرة وصوت عليها مجلس الوزراء، اللي هو مبلغ 4 ملايين، المشاريع المدرة للدخل، وأيضا المساعدات العينية، قد تكون بعض الأجهزة الكهربائية اللي يحتاجوها في منازلهم أثناء العودة. فهذا لاحظنا حقيقة تسجيل أعداد كبيرة من الإيزيديين اللي ترغب مغادرة المخيمات ويعودون إلى مناطقهم، لكن تعرف هذا الملف بجنب سياسية، بجنب انتخابية، بتدخلات من بعض النواب من نفس المكون اللي يستثمر هذا الملف لمسائل الانتخابية، فبالتالي كان هناك تحديات لعمل الوزارة. فكانت رؤية مجلس الوزراء أنه تشكل عدة لجان من جهات ذات العلاقة في إقليم كردستان حتى تتبنى ملف إعادتهم بشكل كامل، تحديدا مخيمات دهوك وأربيل، باعتبار أنه لا تقع هذه المخيمات تحت سلطة وزارة الهجرة والمهاجرين، لكن تقع على عاتق حكومة الإقليم. فبالتنسيق مع وزارة الهجرة حتى نقدر نغلق هذا الملف بشكل كامل. تقريبا احنا أكثر من 175 أو 157 مخيم، ما يحضرني العدد بشكل دقيق عذرا، لكن احنا الآن المتبقي من المخيمات هو 20 مخيم فقط، فبالتالي احنا اغلقنا اغلبيه المخيمات اللي تقع على عاتقنا، واخرها كانت في محافظه سليمانيه، غلقناها بشكل كامل، وكانت طوعيه على الرغم من الهجمات اللي تعرضت لها وزاره الهجره انه هي اعاده قسريه، فكانت فعليا واثبتنا للجميع هي اعاده طوعيه.
Well, the minister also emphasised that with all the reconstruction work underway in Iraq, it is, quote, shameful, she says, to still see people living in camps. So when will this chapter close? Well, the minister says his government has a clear deadline. Close this file by the end of the year.
فالمتبقي الآن هم فقط في محافظة دهوك وأربيل، وإن شاء الله يكون هناك تنسيق مع حكومة الإقليم لإنهاء هذا الملف، لأن حقيقة مع نهاية العام أيضا راح نعتبر الجميع مندمج في مناطق حتى وإن كان متواجد في المخيمات حتى ننهي هذا الملف بشكل كامل. حضرتك تلاحظ أنه اليوم الخدمات والأعمار الكبير اللي أنجزتها هذه الحكومة، فبالتالي من المعيب وجود مخيمات ووجود نازحين في المخيمات إلى هذا اليوم مع هذا الأعمار الكبير اللي قدمته حكومة السيد محمد الشياع السوداني. وهو أطلق على أنه على حكومته أنه حكومة خدمية، وفعلا كانت حكومة خدمية. فلهذا السبب احنا عازمون مع نهاية هذا السنة اعتبار كل النازحين الموجودين في المخيمات هم مندمجين في حال لم يسجلوا في وزارة الهجرة على العودة أو اختيار منطقة بديلة واستلام الامتيازات والخروج من المخيمات بشكل نهائي.
So, whilst tackling the crisis of internal displacement, Iraq is also under pressure to accept asylum seekers rejected by the EU. And under a strategic framework agreement, Baghdad has got to comply or else risk sanctions, visa bans, and being labelled a non-cooperative state. So how will the Iraqi government avoid this? Here's what the minister told us.
من خلال موافقة الحكومة العراقية على الإطار الاستراتيجي بين العراق والاتحاد الأوروبي، فرضت الاتحاد الأوروبي على العراق بإبعاد العراقيين المرفوض لجوءهم إلى بلدانهم الأصلية. نتائج هذا الإطار هو كانت إعادة العراقيين المرفوضة طلباتهم أو تواجدهم بشكل غير قانوني في ألمانيا أو في كل الاتحاد الأوروبي. في حال رفض العراق على هذا الإطار الاستراتيجي راح يفرض عقوبات على العراق، منها عدم منح الفيزا للعراقيين، وكذلك عدم دخول العراقيين إلى ألمانيا أو الاتحاد الأوروبي، وأيضا منع المساعدات الإنسانية بالدخول إلى العراق بكافة المجالات، ووضع العراق تحت بند الدول الغير متعاونة. والأهم من هذا هو عدم تبادل المعلومات الأمنية مع الاتحاد الأوروبي. فهذا اللي فرض على العراق التعامل بهذا الملف، وغير ذلك هو ملف إنساني بحت. فكان للعراق حقيقة من باب المسؤولية الكبيرة اتجاه العراقيين المرفوضة طلباتهم قمنا بعدة إجراءات، منها قام دولة رئيس الوزراء بتشكيل لجنة برئاسة وزارة الخارجية اللي هي معنية بالاتفاقات والتنسيق الدولي وتوقيع 5 إعلانات مشتركة مع دول الاتحاد الأوروبي، وكذلك 2 اللي هي قيد الإنجاز بإعادة أو ترحيل العراقيين المرفوضة طلباتهم. اللجنة الأخرى كانت برئاسة وزارة الهجرة والمهجرين اللي هي تقديم البرامج الخدمية وإعادة اندماجهم إلى مناطقهم وإعادتهم إلى مناطقهم الأصلية. كما قمنا أيضا بتشكيل فرق لاستقبال المرحلين العائدين في المطار اللي متكونة من وزارات أمنية وخدمية وتوعية من خلال البروشورات، وأيضا توصيلهم إلى المناطق اللي أو النقاط اللي هم يرغبون بالعودة إليها. وآخرها كانت هو موافقة مجلس الوزراء على خطة إعادة الاندماج مع كل الوزارات ذات العلاقة. والأهم هو تشكيل برنامج الإحالة الوطني في داخل وزارة الهجرة والمهجرين اللي هو معني بتقديم 6 خدمات للمرحلين العائدين، منها خدمات تعليمية، إصدار وثائق ثبوتية ومستمسكات ووثائق ومستمسكات ثبوتية، كذلك تعنى بتقديم الخدمات الصحية، القروض، الإسكان، كذلك المشاريع المدرة للدخل، التنسيق مع كل الوزارات ومن ضمنها وزارة العمل والشؤون الاجتماعية. فهي لم تكن حقيقة إعادة عشوائية بقدر ما هي كانت مدروسة من خلال الحكومة، وبالتالي أيضا حافظنا على مستوى العراق من خلال عمله مع الاتحاد الأوروبي، ومنعنا بدخوله بعقوبات مستقبلية، وأيضا ساندنا بالمرحلين العائدين وقدرنا نقدم لهم كافة الخدمات الإنسانية اللي يحتاجوها، وكانت هم الأغلبية من إقليم كردستان. والآن أيضا عندنا اتفاقات راح توقع أيضا مع بريطانيا، واليوم احنا كان عندنا فريق الاستقبال كان فقط في مطار بغداد، لكن الآن راح نتوسع، راح يدخل مطار كركوك ومطار أربيل أيضا مع تقديم الخدمات وبالتنسيق مع حكومة الإقليم لإعادة أغلبية العراقيين المتواجدين باعتبار أنه أغلبيتهم من الكرد المرحلين.
Lastly, we're going to turn our eye to the topic of upcoming elections. There are thought to be between 4 and 5 million Iraqis living abroad, including many skilled individuals. But will they be able to take part in upcoming elections? Well, the minister says they should all have the opportunity to participate.
يعني كأعداد تقريبية بتواجد العراقيين خارج العراق هو من 4 إلى 5 مليون عراقي، منهم من الكفاءات من الجالية العراقية، النقابات، الناشطين في كل المجالات، وحتى أصحاب المهن. فبالتالي من خلال يعني أنه لهم الحق في المشاركة أكيد، يعني احنا رؤيتنا كوزارة من حق كل عراقي سواء كان خارج أو داخل البلد له حق بالمشاركة الانتخابية، لكن هذه تعتمد على آلية أو على السيولة المالية لهذه يعني الحكومة العراقية وإجراءات تتبعها المفوضية وحسب الحاجة الحقيقية للموارد المالية لاعتماد الانتخابات خارج البلد. فأنا برأيي حقيقة أنه كان أهم تحدي أو معوق لعدم مشاركة العراقيين خارج البلد هو كان أمر أو مالي، بالتالي هذا اللي أدى إلى عدم مشاركة الأغلبية العراقيين. بالتالي أنه حقيقة لهم جزء كبير مو فقط بالمشاركة الانتخابية في بناء مستقبل البلد بما يخدم مصالحنا من خلال كثير من البرامج أو الاستثمارات الداخلية، واعتمد دولة رئيس الوزراء الحالي اعتمد على الكثير من الاستثمار أو رؤوس الأموال العراقيين اللي بخارج البلد واستقطاب الكفاءات في كثير من المؤسسات واعتمادهم في داخل البلد من أجل النهوض في مستقبل أفضل لكل العراقيين.
Okay, well, many thanks there to the Iraqi Minister of Displacement and Migration, Evan Faeq Yakoob. Many thanks again. Well, that is all we have time for on Global News today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for more exclusive interviews. Until then, bye-bye.